Hey, Geekscapists, welcome to a brand new Geekscape podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan London. And if this is your first Geekscape, well, I like to talk movies, video games, comic books, TV, especially this episode, and pretty much everything that you can fit under a pop culture hood and take for a spin around the block for about an hour. So I'm doing something different starting up. So I've been doing these live videos on Facebook. Maybe you're watching on Twitch, YouTube. Maybe you're watching on LinkedIn. But if you're watching the live video, I'm starting something new. And I kind of got the idea at Comic-Con because all the Comic-Con content is audio only. So I love doing the video. I will continue to do the video episodes. But it's not all the Geekscape content that you can get. If you listen to the audio podcast, that's really where we're going to get most of it. We had 4 amazing episodes at Comic-Con that were only audio because there were people that were coming into the booth. They were hanging out with Matt Kelly and I, or they were signing autographs in the booth, and I was sneaking in some interviews with them. And all that stuff got stitched together and put out on the feed as audio-only episodes. There's 4 of them. They're awesome. They're an amazing grab bag of pop culture people. 2 of them are on the podcast later today. So if you want to hear all that stuff, you really have to be subscribed to the Geekscape podcast feed on whatever podcatcher you listen to. In addition to that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start, maybe you heard it on this very episode, when I'm talking to guests, it's really hard for me to be talking about their topic, subject matter, and then suddenly being like, hey, let's pivot to what I watched this weekend, or what I was asked to review for the podcast, and I'm just going to have you sit there for 5 minutes while I discuss this movie or video game or comic book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start recording longer intros by myself where I talk about maybe what's going on right now in the X-Men books with Fall of X, which is really worth talking about because it's a bit of a sea change in what's happening in the X-Men comics, or my impressions on Barbie or the Ninja Turtles movie, which I love both of them, but that's not very in-depth for you. So if you're not listening to the audio podcast, if you're just watching the video, you're still getting a pretty dang good Geekscape, especially today with my good friends Taylor Morden and Ralph Apel. But it's not all the Geekscape you're going to get. So what you're going to want to do to get the full Geekscape, and this isn't Patreon, this is still free, subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the audio. And then while you're at it, just go back and listen to those Comic-Con episodes. You get the whole Yu-Gi-Oh! Konami saga when they tried to shut off my microphone. And I didn't take too kindly to that. They were, I don't know. It wasn't my best look. I got a little nasty, and I apologize. It wasn't professional, but it was some pretty fun drama. And it's up there on the podcast episodes for you over on the Geekscape feed. So go to whatever podcast app you're listening to this on and go subscribe. All right, let's get to it. We've got an amazing episode. My friends Ralph and Taylor, they're launching this brand new crowdfund campaign for their documentary Getting Lost. It's all things Lost. We're going to be talking a lot about the J.J. Abrams series, and it's going to be a lot of fun. They've been shooting this documentary for months now, maybe a year now. We'll talk to them about it, and that's coming up. So hang tight, Geekscapists. You're in the right spot. Let's go. All right, Geekscapists, here we go. We've got a pretty awesome episode. We're going to be talking all about the show Lost, except maybe not. Maybe we'll start with Ninja Turtles because as I was talking about that, my 2 guests, Taylor and Ralph, were sitting there in the wings saying, well, no, don't be talking about no Ninja Turtles without me. I want to be talking Ninja Turtles. But again, if you want to hear more audio stuff, just go ahead and subscribe to the Geekscape podcast feed on whatever podcatcher you listen to your favorite podcasts on. We are on there. Search for Geekscape. you'll be hearing it. All right. The chat room is also open up on there on the YouTube and the Facebook and the Twitter. I don't know if Twitter will do it, but Twitch, that's one. So let's talk. All right. My two buddies are launching this thing this week. Geekscapists, if you're watching this live on video, it launches tomorrow, August 15th at gettinglostdoc.com. And it is an Indiegogo campaign to support this documentary that the boys have been shooting. We're going to be hearing about the production here in a bit. But if you're a Lost fan or not a Lost fan, maybe you're just a documentary fan, gettinglost.com. Oh, no, I'm sorry, gettinglostdoc.com. If you go to that one, you can get in on the Indiegogo campaign as soon as it launches. If you're watching this live, it'll launch on Tuesday, the 15th. And if you're listening to this on the audio, then you're ready to go. Go to gettinglostdoc.com and you'll know all about it. You can also follow the boys in the project at Getting Lost Doc on all your social media. That's at Getting Lost Doc. All right, enough about that. Let's get the boys in here to hear it from the horse's mouth. All right, we got Taylor, we've got Ralph, and Taylor, this is your first Geekscape video. You were a part of one of those Comic-Con episodes because you were victim to coming by the booth. That was your mistake. And then Ralph, you've been on Geekscape since the beginning.
Geekscape 18. I think it was my first episode. Yeah.
And listen, dude, I got to tell you, it was so. This is what happened, Geekscape. This is the first I heard about the Getting Lost documentary. It didn't even have a title at the time. Maybe it did, but I wasn't privy to it. Ralph called me, and he said, "Hey, man, so Taylor's making a new movie, and of course, Taylor had made a ska documentary. He made The Last Blockbuster. The Pick It Up ska documentary is fantastic. The Last Blockbuster is fantastic. I have nothing but faith in anything that Taylor does. He's a fantastic storyteller." And then Ralph calls up and says, "Hey, man, you know anybody we can interview for this Lost doc? I'm putting together a Lost doc, and my job is to try and find people to interview. I guess because you're friends with Jorge Garcia from Lost. You guys had a podcast together for some time, and he's a friend of yours." So I was like, "Okay, well, that makes sense." And he's like, and then Ralph kind of admits to me, he goes, "I don't really know what a producer does."
It wasn't that bad.
No, that's what you said. You said, "I don't really know what a producer does." And I said, "Well, Ralph, you're doing it. You're making phone calls and you're putting people in front of camera and you're making sure the money the money that you guys get, hopefully this Indiegogo's blows the doors off it. You guys get more than you need. But you're making sure the money's going to the right place and you're making sure that the footage is just getting in the can. That's it. That's your job. And then you're doing great, Ralph. You're doing great, man."
I think I was in the middle of our first shoot when I called you.
Yeah. You were setting up for
on.
it. Yeah, it was really early on. And all I could say was dude, you're going to do great. And Taylor has a couple of these feature documentaries under his belt.
That's what he told me.
Don't worry about it. The phone calls. Yeah.
Because I wasn't an immediate yes. He asked me and I'm like, "Okay, yeah, let me think about it." And I talked to Stevie, my wife. But I was like, I guess I can do it. I mean, he's asking me, and Taylor pretty much was like, "Hey, listen, I've made a number of these. You're not going to mess them up. I know what I'm doing. The only thing you could do is make it better." And I'm like, "All right," because I really don't want to mess up your documentary. And so I'm like, "Yeah, I'll go for it." And yeah, I mean, what's funny is your name came up is one of the reasons I called you. I want to say Taylor's like, "Oh, do you know? I know a guy named Jonathan London." I'm like, "I know Jonathan. I'll give him a call."
Yeah. And why would you call me regarding a Lost documentary?
Well, I mean, I was trying to get my DVR'd discs back from you.
Oh no!
They ripped off my TiVo. No, I'm kidding.
What do you got? If you got them, they're in storage, and I'll get them to you. Yeah.
No, but I remember. I believe it was season 5. Because I'd come on that episode 18 of Geekscape to talk about Lost. And you said, "Oh, I'm behind. I need to somehow catch up before season 6 or something." And I said, "I have them all on DVD-R because the old TiVo I would TiVo all of them and it would stick 2 episodes per disc with commercials." And I lent it to you. And then by the time you finished, I think the season 5 DVDs had come out and I had purchased, so I just said, "Keep them." Do you remember any of this?
I don't at all, and I argue that
like,
there might be holes in there
13 years
because
ago.
I had a DVR myself, and
Yeah.
the thing about Lost is that Lost really was the beginning of Hulu and the whole shift towards on-demand television, because the ABC had made such a great deal with Apple that really it caught the rest of the networks with their pants down when Lost hit and became the water cooler show. And when people missed the live episodes, they could all catch them on Apple, and Apple made so much money. It was the beginning of the whole iTunes thing, getting TV on iTunes, getting your episodes on iTunes. They made so much money, specifically off of Lost, that the other networks, Fox, CBS, they all said, hey, we got to get in on this. And it was the development of Hulu from there. It was crazy, except Sony was like, oh, we got this, crackle.
Yeah, there was a time when Lost was by far the most DVR'd thing every week in the DVR era.
It was huge. That was the one. That was the water cooler show, and it was awesome. I mean, I remember that first season. There is an amazing cliffhanger, whether it's someone getting pulled into the trees or it's, the discovery of the plane, or obviously the end of season 1 with the hatch. It was the perfect show to go into work the next day or hit up your friends and be like, can you believe this happened? You really had to watch them live. So I will continue to poke holes in Ralph's story, and when I go into storage, I'm going to look for these DVRs. I don't know, man, because I'm pretty sure at the end of the day, if I wanted to see a Lost episode, I purchased it.
I don't know what to say.
What if I go in there?
It's a spool of DVRs.
Okay, what if I go in there and there's just a hatch in my storage unit?
Yes.
What if I go in there?
Push a button every 108 minutes.
Yeah. What if I go into my storage unit and I'm like, wait, what's the combination? And it's those numbers from the Lost.
Do you know the numbers?
I don't know the numbers. Come on, guys. I'm a nerd about many things under Geekscape.
I probably gave it to you to save you the money.
No, I don't know. I mean, Ralph, obviously this is not the most. Yeah, we got this. We got this. The fact is, you called me. You said, I'm gonna screw this up. I've never done anything right in my life. How do I produce? And I said, you're already starting, but keep me the hell out of it. I just want to drop by and say hi to you guys. And then I get a phone call a few months later. It's like, when do you want to do your interview? And I was like, I don't want to do no interview for a Lost documentary. Wait, what?
Yeah, we had a last minute cancellation, and you were the first person I called, and then you sort of passed us off to Jason
Inman, who had tons of things to say about Lost, and I hope some version of that interview or some bit of that interview ends up in the final movie. But I was sitting next to Jason. We were sitting down to watch Creed 3 in the theater, and you're like, hey man, we're gonna do some interviews tomorrow. Are you still good? And I'm like, this motherfucker really thinks I'm gonna talk about Lost on camera. I got nothing to say about Lost. It's for why you guys are the guests, and I'm just talking the whole time. But I don't have anything to say. And I turned to Jason. I said, hey man, do you want to take my spot in this Lost documentary? And Jason's like, absolutely. He's a better host. He's got a better gift of gab. He's better looking, and he loves Lost. So I hope he said some nice things. Tell me, guys, in the spirit of what we're talking about, how many times has Ralph screwed this up?
6, and I'll let him try to figure out which one.
I can tell you the first one.
0.
Okay, how many times in his first producing gig has you screwed this up? Okay, talk about it.
Day one, shoot one. Our first interview. I'm over in the corner right off the bat, giggling.
Who's the person?
They're talking about it's Morgan Evans, who's a writer. He's doing the Batman Christmas special coming out soon.
Okay.
On
he just
HBO
did a
Max.
feature, an indie feature too. But he's a huge Lost fan. He I forget what it was. He owns the business registration for one of the fake businesses made up in Lost.
Hanso Foundation.
He owns the Hanso Foundation. So huge Lost guy. It was actually a great interview, but Ralph, never done on-camera interviews before, is just cracking up every time something is funny out loud. And these are very sensitive microphones.
But you squashed it like It couldn't have been more than a minute because I'm like, hee. This guy's talking about Lost in the movie that I'm producing, and I did the clapperboard, and this is crazy. I was so there was a bundle of nerves building up before that shoot, and when we finally got everything set up and sat down and they started talking, I started giggling because, oh my gosh, we're making a documentary. How weird is that?
And I was like, Ralph, we can hear you.
Yeah, and I was like sunk way down on my stool that I was sitting on.
There's a reason they yell quiet on set.
Yes.
And it applies to you too, boss man, Mr. Boss Man.
There was 4 people in the room, including the interviewee, and they all knew what was going on. I was the one odd guy, but I think I've been good since.
This is what happens, Taylor, when you don't start as a PA and get your sea legs going and work your way up. You went out and you just gave this guy the producer gig right off the bat, and he didn't know what the hell he was doing. You knew it was bad when I was one of the first phone calls. Like that is, that's a no.
Listen, you've got geek in your I don't know subtitle all the time, and geeks love Lost, so it wasn't a stretch to be like, hey, maybe we should hit up Jonathan. I knew this guy.
But you had
I didn't know you guys knew each other,
right? And I thought maybe you had called me as connective tissue to possibly some other perspective interviews. But
I don't know if you know Evangeline Lilly. Maybe you know Evangeline Lilly. Do you know Evangeline Lilly? Is my question.
Well, I haven't talked to Evangeline in years.
Well,
she got now. Marvel. She went Marvel big time.
Just call listen, right now.
Geeks will love this documentary, and Karen Morrow over on YouTube says Lost fans will love the documentary. Absolutely. Speaking of Lost fans, honestly, Ralph, you are such a devoted Lost fan. You had the Dharmalars podcast for so long. Again, you developed relationships with many of the cast members and people involved in Lost just out of your fandom. And anytime I think of Lost, you are the person I think of. So I wasn't surprised when you called me specifically talking about being a part of this documentary, because if you weren't the producer on this thing, I would have thought you'd be in front of the camera. Are you in front of the camera for some of this?
No, not really. Unless you do some behind the scenes stuff. Well, I mean, here's the thing. We are. This is a little peek behind the curtain. There are plenty, as you know, plenty of white guys with beards out there willing to talk about TV shows and geek stuff,
or have a podcast.
And there's no shortage of that for us to get. So if we can get people in the documentary saying things more eloquently than me, that's great. I can say this though. We have acquired over 100 hours of footage from an unreleased, unfinished documentary about Lost podcasting that was produced in 2009. And I have an interview. I have an interview in that. And I signed the release form.
Sorry, that's me.
And
Matt Kelly just drove past the house, being like, "Hey, can we get that as a podcast?"
So I signed a release for that doc in 2009, and Taylor has that footage, so he can put me in, and I look like a deer in headlights. I looked at the footage. It's awful.
It's great.
It's awful, dude.
Who filmed this stuff? Who made this documentary?
Alex. Oh man, Alex, I feel bad.
Don't say his name. You just called this movie terrible. So don't.
No.
He did a great job.
Oh, the footage of you is great.
Alex got a whole feature worth of documentary about Lost.
But Lost podcasters.
Mostly podcasters, but also fans, while it was on TV. And the fact that we have, I mean, you've done documentary stuff. Like the fact that this footage even exists is huge for us. It's like
he went to fan events. He did everything.
Oh,
somebody was in the room watching people watch episodes of Lost as they aired on real time with a camera. And we have
so much money on B-roll.
Exactly. And it's not just B-roll. It's A-roll of this is what it was like because you can talk about it all you want. You know how it is making a film. It's like you could talk about it or you can show it. And the fact that we can actually show it because of this footage is amazing.
There was no bigger TV show on when Lost was on TV. There was no bigger TV show. And as I was telling you guys beforehand, those first 3 seasons to me, when it really had its engine revved and it was clear they knew kind of the direction they were going, and they still obviously had, room for discovery, the writer's room. Like some of the actors clearly were there for bit parts, and they blew everybody away, and they said, no, we got to write these guys into more. The last 3 seasons, right, guys? 6 seasons total?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The last 3 seasons, they felt like, all right, well, let's find our way back to some form of an ending. But the ratings were so big, they were not going to pull that show short. And you'd heard these stories that David Lindelof was like, hey, I've written, this is a perfect 3 seasons. Like, I want to do 3 seasons. I have a cool story that wraps up in 3 seasons. Clearly with something like, I think his Watchmen's phenomenal. The one he did with Justin Thoreau is Leftovers. Like that that's like perfect. What, that's 3 seasons. He knew what he was doing. He stuck the landing. With Watchmen. With Lost, let's talk about that landing. Like for me, it did not stick the landing. It kind of like disjointedly tried a lot of kind of neat ideas out, but there were so many things that were going into the stew at that point. And I think so many things that they had to wrap up. I don't know if anybody was going to be satisfied with that ending, but yet there are fans who maybe thematically are satisfied by it. What do you guys think?
I think most of the people we've talked to for a documentary about Lost 20 years later love the ending. And I know Ralph and I are on team it ends good, but I will vehemently defend seasons 4, 5, and 6 against 1, 2, and 3, just in terms of television, right? So season 1, 24 episodes of TV back when all shows were 24 episodes of TV. And it's maybe a perfect season of television. It's great. Most expensive pilot at the time. It's amazing. And that's why we're all here. Season 2, very similar. Season 3, they're like, how long is this show going to go on? We got to do 24 episodes every season forever, because ABC, obviously, like if you have the number 1 show on television, why are you going to end that show? Like that is, you wouldn't. And the people with the money will say, can we get 10 seasons? Can we get 12 seasons? Right? At the end of season 3, to my knowledge, it was the first time a showrunner went into the big office with the biggest show on TV and said, look, we need an end date. Here's how many episodes we can do. Here's how much story we have to tell. And the last 3 seasons of Lost are shorter. They're 14, 15, and 16 episodes, which is the norm now, right? Mm-hmm. They're structured in a way that, yeah, sure, they were trying a lot of new things, but they were also like, these are all the things we wanted to do before the show ends. We know we only have 36 episodes left or whatever. So season 4 does all these crazy flash forwards. Season 5 has this time travel thing, and season 6 has this flash sideways thing that, I don't know, man, as a sci-fi mystery nerd, like that's why I was watching the show. I love those last 3 seasons also because it was the first time I can remember that I saw an episode or a season of TV that was 14 episodes long. That was like the pacing just is nonstop for those last 3 seasons because they knew the end date. And now everybody's like, I've got a show for HBO. It's 12 episodes. That's the end.
It's like a BBC Channel 4 model. It was really something that they've been doing in Canada, or they've been doing in England for a while.
Sure. Yeah, it was the Doctor Who model or whatever, where they're like, here's how long the story is. You guys figure it out. And Lost on broadcast mainstream network television, it was the first time that had ever happened. And as a viewer of it, I remember being like, oh man, there's only going to be 14 episodes next season. Like, I want 24. I want more of the meandering where they just walk around the beach and talk about their feelings. But
with so many things like packed in to those, a part of me felt like they did not have enough episodes. Like it feels like to me those last 1 or 2 seasons of Game of Thrones where I was like, hey, this stuff really started coming at a clip, and especially with the last season of Game of Thrones, I felt like we needed another season to flesh like that whole White Walker stuff, which is the impetus of so much. I mean, they start the pilot of the first episode of Game of Thrones starts with the White Walkers, and then it just felt like it got, I kind of loved that one end fight with the White Walkers, but there was a lot more threat that I thought could have been placed in there. And then, of course, some of the character decisions felt like very rushed there at the end with the final attack in the final battle. With Lost,
and that it
like
came up.
So many of those mysteries, when you think about the mysteries of, the shark with the Dharma Initiative logo on it, or, the polar bear, this is that, like, I wanted answers. So many of the fans wanted answers, and I'm one of the fans that just wanted answers. Don't start with that. No, I don't. Do I have to go back in there and like make excuses for some of this stuff, man? Is that what you've been doing, fan? Like, they're actually in there.
They are in there. So there is a.
Do I have to like pause a shot and like zoom into the background and be like, oh my god, there's a note card on the back of a postcard in the background on a map, and there's the answer. Like, I'm not doing that, man. Come on.
And no. There was a 12-minute epilogue to Lost that most people who watched it casually never saw because it was only on the DVD.
Is it a Coca-Cola polar bear commercial with the Dharma Lars underneath the Coca-Cola bottle?
It's exactly that. No, it's 12 minutes of them just answering. It's just answers for 12 minutes and it's canon. It's part of the show.
Wait, what?
Yes.
You made that up.
No, and a lot of people who like complain about the ending of Lost have never seen this because I think they would have loved to have aired it, but they never did, and it was only on the DVD. And why would you buy the DVD if you didn't like the ending?
What, Ralph? You didn't give me that burned ass CDR. Like, you didn't burn that onto a DVD-R, like,
because it came out. It's on the season 6 DVD,
but again,
months after, and it's not available on Hulu or
they don't include it as part of the show.
So, guys,
you could
my major frustrations with that last season, in that a lot of the stuff got answered for the major characters, and there's deaths and there's revelations and things like that, but ultimately a lot of the suspense, high concept, cliffhanger mysteries, those were actually answered in canon. And it's not just the producers being like, well, here's the answer to that. This is like story stuff that answers the questions.
Yeah,
it's pretty much Ben Linus walking into I can describe it a little.
Describe it, please.
Describe it a little bit. Ben Linus walks into a Dharma warehouse where two guys receive via printout, fax, coordinates to drop the food drops. They don't question where it came from. They're like, hey, my paycheck shows up in my mailbox. I don't ask where these things come from. Ben Linus walks in with a binder full of orientation DVDs from the Dharma Initiative, asks both of these guys to ask him one question. He answers their question and leaves the DVDs with them. They pop it in, and it's the Dr. Marvin Candle explaining a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
The polar bear thing, if you can pick up the clues and piece things together if you watch the show closely.
What about the shark?
This flat out tells you
the shark is never addressed.
Okay. The shark is not addressed. Okay. But it's
a real jump the shark moment.
And the smoke monster?
Smoke monster's explained. You didn't watch the show.
Okay. Well, I watched the show once. I watched every episode once.
But if you Mark mentioned it in the chat, if you watch it's called The New Man in Charge. It's available on YouTube. And it's 12 minutes of Lost that you haven't seen. And it's 100% canon.
Guys, that would have I don't know if that would satisfy everybody. Like Chris Fafalios is in the chat saying, I watched that extra thing and I'm still unsatisfied.
Yeah.
Now listen,
you mentioned polar bears, and that's specifically brought up in that.
They specifically talk about the polar bears. But just to go back a little bit,
guys, I'm going to look that up though, guys, because again, like regardless of what you thought narratively of Lost, you cannot deny the careers it launched, how well it was written, how well it was produced. The directing is amazing. Like just looking at JJ's career, directing that first pilot, and then going from there and getting getting that third Mission Impossible movie, which is still one of the best Mission Impossible movies. I think it's
saved
awesome.
The franchise.
Totally saved the franchise. After I love John Woo. John Woo sent me to film school, but how many people in the 90s did John Woo send to film school? But it was great, and here we go with JJ then doing Star Trek 2009, which is amazing, and it all kind of feels to me like it started with Lost. Lost was so huge, and like I said earlier, There's no Hulu without the
Right.
deal that ABC made with Apple and putting
Right.
Lost up there for people to binge watch after they've been talking about
It
it.
was their number one bargaining chip when they were figuring out how do we do streaming. They're like, well, we've got this one show that not only do people want to watch, but the people who watch it, they want to watch it over and over again all week until the next one comes out. They want to podcast about it. They want to go online to these message boards. And I think, like, you know, these people in suits in LA were just, they didn't understand what to do with this show.
Sure.
You know, the internet took hold of it, and we didn't know either because social media wasn't really a thing. Twitter was invented halfway through the show. This was MySpace era.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about
First
Lost
time-
on MySpace and message boards.
But this was like the first. I mean, I started podcasting with Geekdrome and then Geekscape, and we still had our what were they, the message boards for those shows, and
I was on both of those.
You were on
boards.
both of them, Ralph, and we talked about Lost, and we talked about it a lot in the
my
different
wife
theories.
listened to Geekdrome. My wife was listening to Geekdrome and says you got to listen to these guys. And so
she's who brought you into my orbit. Your wife was listened to the first podcast.
Stevie listened to Geekdrome.
She's like, this guy's cute. She was talking about Dan. She wasn't talking about me.
But no, yeah, that was what was going on back then. The first time Jorge ever reached out to me was through MySpace DM.
Wow.
And I'm like, it was insane. And then
How
the
is
next
Jorge?
day, he's great.
Jorge Garcia, who you know from the Hurley cover of the Weezer album.
That's where I know him from.
Hey, I'm a big Weezer fan. I mean, I think that story is amazing, and it just kind of puts into perspective where we were when Lost hit, in like how it just nailed the cultural zeitgeist of the mystery. And guys, post 9/11, War on Terror, you kind of can't dismiss the political nature of what was going on in the country and how everyone was questioning a lot. We're still questioning a lot. I mean, this is still something that we do. We actually have legit conspiracy theorists and QAnon and weird crap going on now, but that was kind of the beginning of it. Post 9/11, it feels like people were starting to say like, oh, what does that mean when they're zooming into the planes hitting the buildings and they're being like, it was a false flag, or wait, jet fuel doesn't burn like this, and you know, everybody started becoming a conspiracy theorist. And here comes Lost, and it just kind of fans the flames of what people are already doing, but in a safe way. And I remember that when we made Dock of the Dead about zombie culture, my big theory with zombies and why Walking Dead and zombie culture got so popular was post 9/11, post Katrina, post disaster imagery in your face. This is real shit that was happening in the world. People are dying big time. We're talking tsunamis, earthquakes, fires, terrorism. We were in trauma. We were being traumatized. The human race had a PTSD through their cell phones and through their computers at high speed. And I think zombies were the safe way to think about survival and think about our own mortality. And Simon Pegg said it really well in Dock of the Dead. He said, it's a metaphor for death, because no matter how healthy we are, no matter how much we try to outrun it, it's still going to come for us. And ultimately it's us. And it's not elitist. It's not like a vampire. It's not like a werewolf where you have to do something very specific to become one. Everyone dies. And it goes for the rich. It goes for the poor. It goes for the old. It goes for the young. Lost, in just this conversation with you, was the safe way to talk about conspiracy and secrets and deception and a lot of the things that we were dealing with on a macro level in those years.
Also misconceptions. I feel like the introduction of Saeed and Sawyer, those two characters were definitely playing off that.
Yeah.
Right. 100%.
Yeah. You had Sawyer, kind of a blue state, and you had Saeed, sort of a Middle Eastern, you know, and you kind of a red state. I'm sorry. A red state. Yeah. So our good friend Chris Fafalios, who just played the Four Chord Festival in Pittsburgh, I know you're friends with.
Nice.
We're all friends with Chris. His band Punchline just played a festival over the weekend where I think like a hurricane hit it. But he's okay. He's okay. He says everybody was talking about Lost. Some bands were even writing songs about it. Punchline being one of them. And I know the guys in Punchline. That's when I started working with them. They got together and they were all the bands on tour together would talk about theories all week. I don't think there's anybody who wasn't touched by this cultural just.
What's crazy about Lost though is it's a sci-fi show. But
it backdoored you, and it backdoored you into watching sci-fi. You thought you were watching a survival show, and Survivor in itself maybe got us primed to watch Lost, right? Like, how much is Survivor, the reality show?
My mom watched it because it was a soap opera.
Yeah,
I watched it for the sci-fi. Like it hit a lot of different genres that attracted everybody.
Yeah, you're right.
There are people that were in it just for the relationships. We have someone on that we interviewed that was talking about, their mom was into Jack, she was into Sawyer, and that would be the conversation.
That was so Wolverine, and that's Wolverine and Cyclops. That is so Wolverine and Cyclops. You got like the Boy Scout, and then you got like this guy who won't shave.
Bad boy. Yeah. The thing about it, and the reason it reached so many people, is because it did have all these different things. It was a sci-fi show, it was a mystery show, it was a romance show, it was a drama, it was comedic. You got Hurley coming in making a joke every other episode. And so what happened was, in the early 2000s, we still watched TV with our family, like in groups, right? It wasn't everybody on their own screen. It wasn't two screens. It wasn't any of that like we do now. And so you'd have these families getting together. That's one thing that's come up a lot as we talk to people about Lost, is like, it's not about what was on the screen. It's about, oh, my grandmother watched it with me and my dad watched it with me, and we all liked it for different things. And we talk about it for hours in between episodes. And what do you think's going to happen? What do you think's in the hatch? And what do you think the polar bears are doing there? And what's this smoke thing? We don't get that anymore, because now entertainment is so segmented. Like, if you want to watch your very specific show on your very specific platform, well, you watch it on your screen and I'll watch mine on my screen, and we don't all sit together at the same time, right? That's the thing we also forget, is like, people watch Lost at 8:00 on Thursdays. Nobody watched Lost, at a different time. You could drive up and down a street and look in the windows, and house after house would be watching the exact same thing.
You don't want to get spoiled. Like, I think if anything, maybe the Marvel stuff now, because of spoiler culture, maybe the Marvel stuff now, or Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones was probably pretty close.
But even that, you watch it, like, the Marvel stuff comes out, like, and the Star Wars stuff, right? Ralph does a Star Wars podcast.
I specifically have to stay off the internet with a lot of that stuff, because people will spoil it.
And you get up on that morning, like Wednesday morning, you watch your Book of Boba Fett very first thing before you look at the internet, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But it used to be like, I get up at 5:30 and watch it, and you get up at 7 and watch it. We're all watching it at different times. It used to be 8:00 on a Thursday, we've all watched Lost, and then 9:00 we all go on the internet and talk about it.
Right.
Absolutely. The good thing about the good thing with like Disney Plus and HBO is they release their stuff once a week, which is great. And Lost came out once a week. You give you plenty of time to talk about it. The problem with other streamers is they'll release a whole season at once. So
a week later, nobody's talking about it.
Your friend,
yeah.
But you can't discuss it with your friend, because they might be on episode 3 when you're on episode 4, and there's no lining up your viewing schedule.
I like those first 2 seasons of The Witcher, but they came out. The Comic-Con sandwiched the beginning of the third season, the second part of the third season. I didn't get a chance to catch up or watch the first part because I was getting ready for Comic-Con. I was recovering from Comic-Con afterwards. Didn't watch the second part of The Witcher. I haven't watched any of The Witcher season 3, and now I feel like nobody's talking about it. My motivation to watch it, nobody's talking about it. Like,
now
and it stinks.
All we have are Ninja Turtles.
We'll talk about the Ninja Turtles movie. I want to say real quick, the
movies now, like
the shows that I really watch live. The show that we definitely watch right away is Heidi and I make. She watches a lot of TV without me, because I'm like so specific. I'm like, I'd rather be writing. But Strange New Worlds, Star Trek Strange New Worlds is the show right now. I love that show. I think it's so much fun. And I'm not a Trekkie, but Christopher Pike is my captain now, because I think Strange New Worlds is so much fun. They did a musical episode, guys. They did an episode where they like went into this nebula, and it was making them communicate in song because of reverberations and the way that like they suddenly could only really emit song. It was a musical episode, but it was scientifically based in some sci-fi basis for a musical episode. It was so much fun. It was one of those things where they just explained it in a Star Trek way, and then they cured it in a Star Trek way, and it was a great Uhura episode. And everybody gets their episodes to shine on the Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and I'm gonna miss it. I have not watched the season finale yet, but that's the show that I watch every week. And the other shows, I kind of will just like binge through a weekend. I think you're right, guys. Like the event television, it's very few and far between, and we've been segmented as people. Would a big show like that be what unites our nation?
I mean, so Game of Thrones tried, right?
Yeah.
When that finale hit, Lost was back in the news, right? Everybody's like, this is the biggest disappointment since Lost. That was the headline when Game of Thrones came out. Ironically, years earlier, George R.R. Martin had come out and said, I'm going to be very careful writing the ending of Game of Thrones because you don't want to blow the ending like Lost. Like, he said that, and then look what happened. But that's the thing. We don't have these events anymore. Like, we're all old enough to remember, I mean, maybe not the ending of MASH live, but like the ending of Cheers, the ending of Friends, the ending of Seinfeld.
The ending of Seinfeld's the one I remember. People got crazy for ending of Seinfeld. I remember that one really specifically. And then people were complaining about that ending too, where they all went to jail, but they all deserved to go to jail.
Yeah. But Lost was at the tail end of 10, 15 million people watching the same show at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're lucky if you get that total over the year that your thing is out on streaming.
Christopher Robinson is in the Facebook group, and he's saying serialized television has been shown it's so much better for retention. I've binge shows in a day and can't tell you almost anything about it. But Talk Sliders or X-Files, I can't remember. I can remember individual episodes. Same, brother. Mark Vibert says, always makes me upset with how many people think Lost blew the ending. And I'm not going to say it blew the ending. It just wasn't my ending, because most of them weren't actually paying attention to what was being said or done in the finale. And I think ultimately, Mark, a lot of that stuff was because you talked about it throughout the week so much. Things that you did possibly miss, your friends didn't, or they went back and they're like, dude, no, there was a clue. You missed a clue. You like, oh, and then you go back and maybe watch it or something. But yeah, Chris Valius has a great one. He says, a prestige show that nailed the ending, really stuck the landing, was Atlanta. I heard nothing but great things about that ending. But we will see. Guys, the film is going well. Can you tell us some of the people you've interviewed? Because we really should push this Indiegogo that starts this week. Again, Geekscape, if you want to support the Indiegogo, if you're watching this live, as many of you are, go to gettinglostdoc.com. You're going to see a portal to some of the Indiegogo. You can probably set up for some reminders, and also Getting Lost Doc on any of the socials, and you'll be able to see and follow them and see what they got, the news that comes down the pipe. But talk to me a bit about who's in the documentary, if you can reveal. I've been seeing on your socials some pretty good names from Lost, whether or not they were part of the writing team or the stars of Lost. Like, it's kind of impressive who you guys are getting. I would say your producers turned things around from the chuckle nutty way that he started this project.
I mean, it's definitely a team effort.
To not laugh while somebody is blowing a take.
Well, no, as far as getting the people, I can't take all the credit, not even remotely, but we've been working pretty well as a team. And we've got a ton of people. We've done 29 sit-down interviews.
Sure.
And then an additional, I think 11 with some fans, and we shot the Comic-Con panel a couple weeks ago for Lost. And we're just, I mean, I don't know if I want to rattle off a bunch of names. You want to rattle off some names?
Give me a handful of names. I mean, there's one that you've already shown in social media that could get.
Yeah, we've announced most on the socials, but your listeners probably don't follow us yet. So I mean, we got Jorge Garcia, who plays Hurley. It was
like Ralph's roommate at this point.
That's Ralph's best friend.
You guys are such close friends. I wanted to be your best friend, and instead of Jorge Garcia beat me to it.
Yeah, Jorge Garcia is a pretty cool dude in the world of Weezer fans.
I don't fault him.
And we got a bunch more of the cast. We got the guy who played Walt. He's now a grown man, which is funny. But he was also in a band, had a Billboard Top 10 hit.
Are you serious?
2010. Yeah, it was a pop song. He was in a band called MKTO, and they had a song called Classic that was like in 2010.
I think Chris Fafalios and Matt Kelly of One Hit Thunder would know that, but I do not know that. That's
Yeah,
really impressive. Yeah,
there's a good one hit for you. I was talking to them. I was like, we should do You All Everybody by Drive Shaft. And
yeah,
your entire audience.
They put a kibosh pretty early on fictional songs.
Yeah, because they're all one hit wonders.
Yeah,
every
but Drive
one.
Shaft would be awesome. Well, who else? I mean,
yeah,
guys, LA Comic Con's coming up. If there's anybody from Lost in the LA Comic Con, I just started getting solicitations already for LA Comic Con, which I think is in early December. If there's anybody from the Lost cast, like let's go shoot some stuff.
For sure.
But Michael Giacchino has joined us. Not only is Michael Giacchino joining us, he's also provided the music for our film, which is nuts. I mentioned that
he
on
did the music
audios.
for Lost. It's amazing.
Yeah,
and he recorded this music at the time he was doing Lost. So it's fully orchestrated, about an hour and 5 minutes of music that's been unreleased. And he's a cool dude and thought that this was a project that it should go towards. He's been sitting on it for 13 years.
So you're getting like Lost demos and like Lost music.
It's not even done.
It's fully done.
But
it's a fully orchestrated piece of music, not from Lost, but sounds like Lost, except there's an inclusion of woodwinds. And he just gave it to us. He's like, here, have it.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And
Ralph, documentary, so it's going to fit our documentary perfectly.
Ralph, can you get him in? Can I get him on to talk Werewolf by Night with me?
Yeah.
Can you connect this? I want to talk Werewolf by Night, man. I love that Disney special. That Disney Plus special. Hear my request from you guys because I've been supporting you guys for a long time with your promotions.
True.
Michael Giacchino and Jorge Garcia. Because I just want to talk Weezer with Jorge.
Listen, you could talk Weezer with me. I co-wrote and produced and performed on a Weezer song that's on a Weezer album. I just got a royalty check from the ASCAP the other day.
Which one?
Weezer. I worked on a song called Turning Up the Radio. It was the only single off their album Death to False Metal, which was right before Hurley.
Yep.
I'm a huge Weezer fan. I've played in 4 different Weezer tribute bands now. I am a Weezer aficionado.
Okay, you're going to join Hurley and I on it.
And if you want to talk Weezer, I know a lot more about Weezer than Jorge does, for sure.
I know. Guys, did you know I PA'd on the first Island in the Sun video?
I didn't.
not the one that Spike Jonze did, but
the one with the animals.
No, that's the one Spike Jonze did. The first one was coming right off of the Hash Pipe video, and so they got oh my god, I'm blanking, but I really love this director and I'm blanking. So they gave him another video, and it was the King Sierra video for Island.
Oh, right. That's such a weird video.
And it's a weird video, and they actually redid the video with Spike Jonze for the animal video, but I kind of prefer the King Sierra one, not just because I worked on it and got to meet everybody. I mean, Brian Bell was really nice to me, and he kind of took me under his wing, and we'd get coffee and stuff, and he gave me a signed copy of the Green Album afterwards. But I just remember talking to him hey, this looks good, this video looks good, and he goes, it's kind of hard to make a video. And then it wasn't until I was directing videos later on that I appreciated it's hard to make a video that works. It's sometimes really hard to stick the landing on the videos.
Brian Bell, they did this series of music events called Hootenannies right around the time I was doing the song with them. So we were emailing, and I was recording my guitars and sending them to them and doing all that. They did these Hootenannies where they would have people come and play weird instruments on stage with them. And I'm a trumpet player from the ska world. So I'm like, I'm going to bring my trumpet. Can you guys get me up on stage? Stadium show. I'm going to play one of your guitar solos on trumpet. And there's not a lot of rehearsal time for these Hootenanny things. I'm backstage, and there's one run through, and I blew it. I was the worst you've ever heard a trumpet play. It was the guitar solo from Beverly Hills.
It'd be the equivalent of giggling during a take on a documentary.
It's very close. And Brian Bell came up to me afterwards, and he was like, I don't know, man. You really better practice. You really better get it.
You were sweating, dude. You were sweating.
Oh my God. And then I did nail it at the thing, but I spent the next hour and a half just running that solo over and over again.
I love it, dude. There's so much,
So-
Taylor. What's great about it is like there's so much I don't know about you, and our friendship has lasted years, but
Yeah.
we have not actually been in the same room until this past couple months ago when Jason Inman and I went over to record Jason's interview, and I just popped in real quick to be like, "Hey guys, need me to carry a C-stand?" And that's really amazing. Dingalan Johnson in the comments is saying, "Hey, I'm realizing that I saw Taylor perform Sell Out at
Right.
Back to the Beach
I
2019.
played trumpet with Weezer,
Mm-hmm.
Real Big Fish, and the Backstreet Boys.
Well,
And I think I'm the only
2019
person who's done that.
would have been with, I mean, the Really Fish guys were those were my guys for so long because I did those videos for them, and I love that band. I love Scott Klopfenstein dearly, and Danny and John. And speaking of bands that we both love, like I saw Suburban Legends play at Backyard Party last weekend, and I just love.
Nice.
I love Aaron and
Solid.
Vince and Clem so much, and Brian, and it's crazy, Mr. Morgan, how like parallel we've been existing for like probably 2-3 decades,
It is
and we
true.
just in the last 5 years started like actually connecting quite a bit. Geekscape is, we are going to talk about the new Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem movie, but I want to get a little reminder here that, again, if you want to learn more about the Lost documentary, whether or not you're a Lost fan, because clearly these two guys are fun and you want to support them, go to gettinglostdoc.com and sign up for like some of the social medias. Go follow them on social media, Getting Lost Doc. And then check out this Indiegogo and see like how you can help out, what the different tier rewards are potentially, and really like what they got to do to make things easier on them. This movie's going to happen regardless. That's the way documentaries go. But if you can do anything to help them, pay for some flights, pay for some footage, pay maybe for some festival submissions, pay for all the things that go into making an independent movie. I know the boys will really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I don't want to leave you guys hanging, so I will run through a list of people that are in the movie. So we've been interviewing both fans and cast and crew. So Malcolm David Kelly, who played Walt. We have Jay and Jack from the Lost podcast with Jay and Jack. Sean Diston, who's a writer and actor on the TBS Lost parody Wrecked. MC Gainey.
Yeah, MC Gainey's great.
He's in everything.
MC Gainey's, he's amazing. Jorge Garcia from the Kaiju podcast with Jorge and Ralph. I ran for 4 years. For 4 years.
Ralph, why are you putting these episodes up and not putting them? Like, why are you putting podcasts together and they're not on Geekscape, the network? Maybe we weren't a network.
I'll put that on there.
Please do. Talk to Matt Kelly. Note to Matt
Kelly. Was telling me get Darmalars on there, and I'm like,
note to Matt Kelly. The thing is, like, but we put ads on everything, and you can make a little bit of change on it. Like, why not?
I like Michael Giacchino, Fred Lane, Jason Inman, Sonia Walger, who played Penny on Lost. Sam Levine from Freaks and Geeks, huge fan. Sterling Beaumont, who was a little 12-year-old Ben Linus. Is all now grown up. Hector Navarro, Patrick Fischler, who played Phil, Dharma guy. Ali Gertz, Eric Lang, Sean Whalen, who you know from the Got Milk commercial, the Aaron Burr Got Milk.
I like
commercial.
Sean a lot.
Also the Newsboy in Batman Returns.
And
also played Neil Frogert on Lost.
And he was in
my favorite movie of all time.
BFP.
That Thing You Do.
Wasn't Sean Whalen in the FP? Sean Whalen.
What are you saying?
He's the Got Milk guy.
Whalen.
Aaron Burr. That guy.
Yes, Sean Whalen is in the FP. Sean Whalen is absolutely in the FP. And Sean Whalen, he's like the FP. You know the FP, Jason Tross and Brandon Tross movie about like DDR to the death in the post-apocalyptic future. The FP. You've never seen the? Oh my God, Ralph, you would love the FP.
Is that the? Yeah, you've told me about it.
That's the FP is the movie that Jason and Brandon Tross did, where these guys have to DDR to the death in a post-apocalyptic future. Sean Whalen is absolutely in it, and Sean Whalen came back up in my orbit during the strike because as an actor, he went on TikTok and made a TikTok about how little he makes off of the Disney Nickelodeon shows that really used him quite a bit. And it was a pretty sobering TikTok if you ever want to put in perspective what these actors are going through.
Yeah, because people were coming at him saying, "Oh, you're a rich actor," you know.
Sean Whalen is not a rich actor; he's a character actor, and those guys have to work hard. Like I mean, that's tough.
We've been to his house, and it's very modest.
I love Sean Whalen. Home. I've never actually met him, but he's such a good dude, and he's worked with great guys like you and Jason. And and while you're at it, Ralph, get Sean Whalen. I'm throwing him into the package deal. Like, okay, here's the order. Here's the laundry list. Here's what you're going to deliver to me. Okay, you got it. I'm going to write it down. You're going to get a Sean Whalen.
Okay.
I'm going to get a Jorge Garcia.
Okay.
And we're going to get a Michael Giacchino. And that's what I want. Okay? Like, it doesn't...
We're going to ask for Simon Pegg, John Oliver, and Jonathan London.
That's the trade.
I can get you Jonathan. Yeah, it's a little disproportionate. But Jonathan London brings the stock value down quite a bit. You know what? What stinks is my buddy's got this Dander Fordor movie coming out with Simon Pegg, and we're like working on it. Simon can't do the podcast while the strike's going on. You can't. I don't think so. I'm gonna look into it, but like,
it's got to be like a micro budget. It's got to be like under 50,000.
Yeah, it's not that, but I'm definitely gonna try and get the director Adam on the show to talk about it. But he was like, yeah, we can get Simon, but then the strike happened. It's like Geekscape is sorry. I'll keep working on it. But that Dander Fordor movie looks so much fun, and Simon's in it. And Ruthie O'Connell, who I met on Supernatural, is in it, and it looks great.
Stevie put it in our shared calendar so that we don't forget to go catch it.
Yeah. Who else? You know who I met on Supernatural is the other Lost guy. He played the devil on Supernatural. Who was he on Lost? I met his Mark Pellegrino.
Oh yeah.
I still talk to his wife.
Picture of him right there.
Tracy. Mark Pellegrino is a great dude. He's really good. Cool dude. Maybe I can send an email. I don't know. We're talking off camera. Let's see if we can maybe. I don't know. Y'all haven't interviewed Mark, right?
No.
We'll see. Maybe that's a tier for the Indiegogo. Put it in there.
There you go.
All right. Let's talk turtles. Okay, Geekscape. So I was going to say this in my intro, but you guys already heard my intro. I got Heidi to. The movies I've looked forward to most this year. This is probably number one. And obviously we had a Spider-Man movie this year. We had Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and that's just incredible. Amazing. I saw it twice, loved it. The Barbie movie, I loved it too. But the movie I was looking forward to most this year, the one that I was like, all right, I got to see this movie day one. And I did, was Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. And I love the Spider-Verse adjacent art style. I love the fact that it looks like an indie comic. This movie is beautiful. And it's not just beautiful. Seth Rogen's behind it. It's hilarious. This movie is hilarious. And not all the jokes are in the trailer. I would say much funnier bits are in the movie than what you got in the trailer.
I laughed out loud so many times in the theater.
I smiled the whole time. And it took however many years of Ninja Turtles, like 35 years they've been around, to actually like lean into the teenager part of it.
Yeah. I was really pleasantly surprised at the fact that these weren't just like older versions of, they weren't just ninjas, and they weren't just kind of saying cowabunga every 2 seconds, but they talked like teenagers. They felt all individual like teenagers. They had insecurities like teenagers. And what I loved about the movie, I think, where I was like, okay, this movie is going to be awesome, is that it dealt with the loneliness and the doubt of being a teenager and finding your place in the world, especially for teens that were raised in a sewer. And there's a scene early in the movie where they have to go out and scavenge for food because Splinter's told them that the outside human world isn't to be trusted. And by that point, we've already had the opening where you see Baxter Stockman's character, played by my wingman, Giancarlo Esposito. His lab gets raided. The ooze, ends up in the sewers. It's a bit of a difference from the Kevin Eastman, Peter Laird origin story of the Daredevil origin story, where the truck has the ooze fall off the back and ends up in the sewers, which is the Daredevil origin. And Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird were very clear in saying that this is a parody of Daredevil.
That's why it's the foot.
And I love it. That's why that's the foot versus the hand. And I love that stuff. And I was telling somebody that in the lobby, and they were like, "You're putting me on." And I said, "Fuck no, I'm not. Go Google it. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was a parody of Daredevil and Frank Miller's Daredevil." So you have this scene where they are going out to get food and they're starting to want to be more teenagers. They have questions about the outside world. Clearly they trust Splinter and they love Splinter, and that he says don't trust the human world, but they are looking at an outdoor screening on a rooftop of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and they just want to go and enjoy the movie with the rest of the teenagers, and it is so sad. And each of them have their own sad kind of story and doubts, like, you know, Leonardo, is he a leader? He hasn't done anything as a leader right so far, but he keeps wanting to be the leader. And they each have their own problems, but collectively, they need to come out of the shadows and establish themselves. And you know the mistakes are coming. And then what they did with April in bringing her back to the character origin stories, and actually, I mean, they actually not just, I think racially, they brought her back as a person of color, like Kevin Eastman's original wife, who she was based on. But then they made her a teenager as well, which is kind of a daring change because I don't think she's ever been a teenager in any of the iterations, but it worked so well here because she's on a parallel journey with the main characters, and she too had to prove herself. So it's really these 5 characters have to prove themselves.
Right.
I thought this movie was beautiful thematically, and then it was just effing hilarious.
Yeah.
Am I not covering any bases on this thing? I mean, this movie, I got to see it again.
Yeah.
No, it was, I mean, I don't think you can talk enough about how great the art style is, how it's not Spider-Verse. We use Spider-Verse as like, oh, it's kind of like that because it's, choppy and looks hand-drawn.
It's not traditional Pixar looking.
No,
Right.
this legitimately looked more indie comics. If Spider-Verse is a Marvel comic and kind of a little bit more glossy, this is an indie comic. It's got so many rough edges in the artwork, and I love that.
That's what was so great is like you see all these characters, no spoilers or anything, but there's a ton of mutants in it and everything, and they're all drawn like just crazy, like a kid drew them.
And you can still see etch marks in it. You can still see the pencil markings in the artwork.
Great. It's so great.
I got to tell you, when those mutants started coming out, and I still have the action figures. Those are in storage next to the CDRs that
I got them all right here.
And I have them in the case. I have them in that plastic case that opens up and folds out. I have all the original toys of these things. When I started seeing them, almost like a roll call as they get out of the vehicles, and they are my entire shelf of action figures. And some of them are deep cuts. Some of them we'd recently refamiliarized ourselves with on the Shredder's Revenge video game that came out, because a lot of them are in the Shredder's Revenge.
How is that?
What do you mean? How is that? You should have played it.
Oh, good.
I'm stuck on Tears of the Kingdom.
Well, Tears of the Kingdom came out way later. You should have already blown past it. Dude, they put out Usagi Yojimbo on Shredder's Revenge.
Oh, yeah?
As a DLC character.
I got to go get that.
We got to play. Hey, Taylor, are you playing on a Switch or on Xbox, or what are you playing on?
Switch.
Oh, Switch. Well, let's play with us.
Okay.
My Big Yanks over here and I are on a family plan together because we're family. Big Yanks is doing great. I love Big Yanks. He's entering a new era in his life, and he's flourishing, and his daughter's off to college. Big Yanks is great. Geekscape is big. That's what you do with Geekscape. Like, Big Yanks is somebody who's been listening since year 1, since as long as Ralph, and his daughter, who was
a
like
baby
3 or something, is now off to college, and I'm still talking about nerd stuff on the internet. He's doing great, and that's with the weekend that Shredder's Revenge came out, he's who I binged it with, and we beat all the levels. Then we got Casey Jones, went back through and kept playing. And okay, Taylor, we got to have a play date set up. This is what I want. I want Michael Giacchino. I want Sean Whalen, Jorge Garcia, and play date with Taylor Morden. Those are my demands.
You got it.
So when they start roll calling these characters, I'm like, that's it, right? That's it. I gotta say that the Paul Rudd voiced character is my favorite.
Mondo Gecko.
Mondo Gecko is my favorite.
It's the best take on that character because it was wasted before. It was one of the best toys, right? Because he came with a
skateboarding gecko. How can you go wrong
on it? And his tongue's hanging out the side. He's got braces. It's one of the best action figures of the 80s and 90s. And then when that character comes on screen in this movie, and he out Michelangelo's Michelangelo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, he's a little crazier and dumber than Michelangelo.
For sure, but it's like what the cartoon Michelangelo was in the 80s, but this skater dude, and I don't know, Paul Rudd can do no wrong, but I don't think he's ever done anything better than this.
Wow.
Hot take.
Wow. You know what? Not bad. Not bad. I will take that hot take. And I love this movie. I cannot wait to revisit it. I think all the voice actors did such a great job. Ice Cube did such a good job of Superfly. And guys, stay through the credits. I saw somebody who really enjoyed the movie and they did not stay through the credits and they missed the tag. And I cannot fucking believe it. You do not do that in the modern age.
Right.
I mean, as
also,
somebody you don't do that.
Can't not mention Splinter.
Jackie Chan as Splinter was great.
Jackie Chan was great, and they gave him a Jackie Chan fight scene with the office chair. Like that whole sequence where he comes in with all the Ninja Turtles weapons.
Seth Rogen and company. They just knocked it out of the park. So Ralph, come up to LA. We'll go see it again. Or actually, I think I'm going to Disneyland this week, and maybe I'll make a night of it, and I'll come and watch Mutant Mayhem with you after we leave the park. And I'll bring you like a caramel apple or something and some mouse ears for you or something. I don't know.
I'm good on the mouse ears.
Okay. All right. All right.
The apples I'll take.
Geekscapists. I think we had a pretty damn good episode here. We've talked a ton of Lost and we got to talk Ninja Turtles, which is always a fantastic episode. And what I love is that, I had Kevin Eastman many years ago on this podcast and you did not ask for him in the draft, in the Geekscape Lost Doc draft where we were trading guests. You did not ask for Kevin Eastman.
Is Kevin Eastman famously a giant Lost fan and we don't know it? Is that?
If we can ask, but
okay, well, let's ask.
I didn't drop in on him at Comic-Con, and I really should. That's when I see him, is at Comic-Con. Yeah. I had a rough Comic-Con. In Geekscape, you can hear all 4 days of Comic-Con. We have an hour for each day on the Geekscape podcast.
Great when we saw you.
Yeah.
When did I see you guys?
Yeah, you were doing great
on Friday.
Guys, Thursdays when the Yu-Gi-Oh wars happened and the shit really hit the fan. Heidi had that brilliant idea to have me go down with a microphone so that whenever I interviewed people in the booth, people walking past could be like, "Oh, cool! There's an interview." We had almost like our own little panel stage at the Geekscape booth to have guests and do interviews at the Geekscape booth. It's a fantastic idea, except when I don't have guests, Jonathan still wants to talk on a microphone, and it turns into a roast. And the Yu-Gi-Oh people didn't really appreciate that.
Oh, no.
And you got, for all that drama and more, subscribe to the audio feed of the Geekscape podcast on your favorite podcatcher right now, and you can hear those episodes. And fuck, that was rough. I did apply for a change of placement for next year, and I hope they acknowledge it. And I think we agreed upon acknowledging it when I talked to Comic-Con about how we've outgrown our old spot with a bunch of squares from corporate America trying to silence me, the indie creator, and I'm going to fight the man. All right. Speaking of fighting the man,
I'm pretty sure the dude with the ocarinas next door wasn't corporate.
No, that I liked those guys as much as here's the thing. There's worse places they could have placed me. Like, considering Zelda's my favorite game franchise, I'm good listening all weekend to a bunch of ocarinas. Like, I get it. It's all good. Yeah. I've been listening to ocarinas for 30 plus years. I can listen to them next to me for 4 days. It's cool. Matt, on the other hand, he was ready to kill himself. All right. Ralph, Taylor, it's been a pleasure talking to you guys. Again, Geekscapists, go follow on social media, Getting Lost Doc on any of your social media. That's the handle, and you're going to follow along with the creation of this documentary and help them get past the finish line here on this thing. You're going to go to gettinglostdoc.com. You're going to find out how the Indiegogo is going. You're going to support the Indiegogo. They're great guests. They're even better filmmakers. Well, Taylor is. Ralph has to prove himself, but he's learning every day.
Listen, tomorrow you're going to see some footage, and you're going to see how great it is.
Great. You DP'd it?
Over promising. I love it.
He's your DP now?
It looks great. No.
You didn't shoot it.
I still produce.
Has he set up a C-stand, Taylor?
Yeah, yes. I think so. I don't know if it was set up correctly, but yes, he has set up at least one C-stand.
I suck. I still feel like the equipment. I'm afraid I'm going to break everything. I'm afraid. I don't know.
Ralph, this is your film school, and I think you're doing swimmingly. I give you a B+, but the movie maybe it'll be an A+, and I hope you guys I can't wait. I can't wait to see what it turns into, guys. I'm very excited about it. Again, Getting Lost Doc on all the socials, and as a .com where you can find out more info on the film and check out the Indiegogo. Geekscapists, I love you. You can find Geekscape anywhere. They have podcasts, and of course, you can find us on socials. Just search for Geekscape, you'll find us, and maybe you'll find one of our many shows on the Geekscape network. I love them all dearly. They're my little children, and I love talking to you guys every week. Sorry I skipped last week. I just got super crunched by work. We're starting some new things here in the life of Jonathan, new company, new things to shoot more media and do more cool things as a filmmaker. Of course, I'll tell you guys about that when the time is right. But
Let me know if you need a producer.
Really messed up. And I'm going to start you with.
You're going to be my first phone call.
Yeah. I'll call you and be like, okay, so here's the coffee order. I love you. I love you so much, Ralph. Ralph, I'm being sincere. Like, I'm so proud of you, dude. Yeah. Like, we've known each other for so many years, and I am being very sincere in saying that
years or something.
I'm so proud of you, dude, and I love you dearly. Thanks. And you and Stevie have been so wonderful to know over the. There's so many rewards doing Geekscape, and people are like, "Why are you still doing this shit?" But like, the rewards just keep coming with people meeting people like you, and you are a shining star in the Geekscape universe. And I love you, man. So I'm really proud of you, and I'm glad you guys linked up and are part of this. I'm excited to see the film. Geekscape, so I'll talk to you next week. We've got Rob Kuttner, comedian Rob Kuttner, is coming back with his children's book to talk about us. It's called Snot Goblins, and I'm excited to talk children's books and snot on next week's Geekscape. Subscribe, and I think you'll enjoy it. All right, leave us those 5-star reviews, all the things that you do to support your local Geekscapists and your podcast, and we'll do that. All right, guys, go to your next interview. Good luck tomorrow on the launch, and we'll be right there with you. Okay. Peace.
Bye.